Hello and welcome to Web Relates. Today we're looking at some stories from the TIFU subreddit. Today I messed up. Our first story is by Lovely Vitamin. Today I messed up by calling a customer ugly. I work part-time at a small pizza shop in the neighboring township, and where it's located there's a big community of deaf/hard of hearing people. I learned ASL in high school and forgot most of it. I can still sign quite a bit, but I'm not as proficient as I used to be. One of our regulars fell into a routine with me, where I would try my hand, lol, at an actual conversation in ASL, and for the most part, it's going pretty well. If I don't know a sign, I'll fingerspell, though not as fast as I would like, and he'll teach me the sign for it. Well, we fell into the routine today, and it's raining, so I was able to actually have a longer conversation due to the lack of customers. I learned quite a bit, including the word for sausage, which the pizza maker got a kick out of. Some time passes, and I see that he finishes his meal, and I decided that before he left, I wanted to tell him to stay dry. Unfortunately, I mixed up the sign for dry, and instead signed something else. He, rightfully so, was taken aback, and I stood there confused, because I'm pretty sure what I signed was right. I hurriedly fingerspelled what I meant to sign before he began to laugh at me. Again, I'm very confused, and it wasn't until he grabbed a napkin to write out what I had said. Instead of telling him to stay dry, I told him to stay ugly. He walked away laughing while I stood there embarrassed and mortified. I would also like to mention that he's a teacher at the local deaf/hard of hearing school, so I'm pretty sure he told everyone what had transpired. TLDR, I mixed the sign for dry with ugly and ended up saying stay ugly to our deaf regular. Our next story is another sign language story. It's brought to us by Middle Huckleberry 23. Today I messed up by pretending to know sign language. Today I messed up by pretending to know sign language. Let me explain. I was at a local coffee shop, trying to get some work done. The place was bustling, and in walked a group of people, one of whom was deaf. I noticed them signing to each other, and I couldn't help but be intrigued. I've always found sign language fascinating, and I know a few basic signs from an online course I took ages ago. So, as I stood in line for my second cup of coffee, the deaf person approached the counter. The barista seemed a bit flustered, struggling to understand the order. I thought I'd be a good Samaritan and help out. I tapped the person on the shoulder and confidently signed, "Hello, what do you want?" At least, I thought that's what I signed. Their face lit up with relief, and they began signing rapidly. Here's the thing, I only knew a few signs. They might as well have been casting spells. I had no idea what they were saying. Panic set in. I nodded along like a bobblehead, desperately trying to piece together the few signs I did recognize. I managed to catch coffee and large, so I turned to the barista and said, "Large coffee, please." The person looked at me, clearly confused, and signed again, this time more slowly. I was in too deep. I couldn't back out now. I tried to respond with the little I knew, but it was obvious I was floundering. Eventually, the deaf person smiled sympathetically and signed, "Thank you," before turning to their friend for help. I retreated to my table, my face burning with embarrassment. Later, I found out that instead of signing, "Hello, what do you want?" I had signed, "Hello, what are you?" No wonder they were confused. TLDR tried to help a deaf person by signing, ended up confusing them by asking, "What are you?" instead of "What do you want?" Now I'm too embarrassed to go back to my favorite coffee shop. I agree with OP in that sign language is fascinating. I've also always wanted to learn some, but I think I'd be far too mortified to even try speaking to a deaf person with it. Our next story is by Squid Firm. Unfortunately, the original post has been removed, but his update remains. Today I messed up by trying to stay awake for as long as I can. It all started on Thursday. Decided I would reboot my mediocre sleep schedule by staying awake for as long as I could. I posted about that last week. All was well for a while. Stayed up longer than intended, but I exercised multiple times a day. Filled an entire journal with my life story and how my experiences related to each other. I had a bit of a weird childhood and did some kind of messed up things in my earlier teen years. Recorded hours of footage talking about current political affairs. Realized what I want to do with my future as well. But on Sunday, things became a bit interesting. I wasn't physically tired, but the sleep deprivation caused by this experiment was definitely getting to my brain. It felt like I was just teleporting from room to room because I was kind of on autopilot. Didn't go to work because literally anything else seemed more productive than scanning barcodes. Slept a bit in 15-minute increments, horrifyingly realistic nightmares each time. I didn't want to turn my lights off, and had an argument with my mom about that. It was like a hologram was yelling at me. Strange interaction overall. On Monday, I went over to a friend's place, drank quite a bit, the better part of a bottle of vodka. I was still weirdly hyped and stayed there overnight. Played Donkey Kong on mute and whispered into my phone because he wanted to sleep. Got bored and ran all the way home at 4 a.m. In combat boots, so both my ankles are screwed. About a 12-kilometer journey. I came in with quite a lot of noise, I guess, and it woke up my mother. She didn't want to listen to what I had to say, said I acted and looked insane, and took me to the hospital. She probably despises me more than usually right now. They gave me an IV because I was dehydrated, something to lower my wild heart rate, multiple random psych pulls, I don't know, and a sedative shot to pass the hell out. I guess it worked. I slept for over 12 hours straight, woke up feeling off, numb, completely cotton brain. I'm certain it was the pills. I flushed them instead of taking them again, but my mind still feels the same. Empty. Can't even properly put into words how I'm feeling. Just not really there. They brought me a meal earlier. It didn't look bad, but I couldn't eat it. Anything seems better than actually doing anything. I spent mealtime laying with my head on my wrist to listen to my watch tick. Just typing this to update, I guess, and to distract myself from the fact that I can't think as well anymore. My new emotional clarity is fully gone. I miss my improved self. The psychiatrist is evaluating me later today, so hopefully they'll let me go home afterwards. I don't think they can legally keep me here, and not planning to off myself or anything. Now that is both a concerning and interesting story. Just as an update, OP has said that he's been deemed well enough to return home. He did say that it was the pills that he thinks made him feel off when he woke up, but I'm not so sure. I know that times where I've slept for too long, I certainly just feel very odd in the brain afterwards. Our last story comes from Alkaline Arrow. Today I messed up by trusting my bank to listen to me and protect my money from scammers. So this wasn't actually today, but back in 2020, after I got married and had my first kid. In the summer 2020, I was still in school and going into my senior year of college. I got married at the beginning of the year and had my first kid a few weeks prior to this incident. I was working as a delivery driver and trying to find another stream of income. I decided to start tutoring online. I was getting my tutoring service off the ground, and a man reached out to me to tutor his son over the course of a couple months. I asked for payment up front and was being sent a specific type of check that's meant to be coming from an education savings account. This pinged my scam radar to start being careful. I checked with my dad about the legitimacy of this type of check for starters, and he confirmed that they are rare, but yes, a real thing. This check was to the tune of $1,600, so I knew I had to be careful. Well, the check finally comes in the mail, and I deposit it into the bank. I start to plan the lessons for the first tutoring sessions. Then a few days later, I get a message from the dad saying his son has COVID, and he needs to cancel all the sessions and get his money back. Since I was prepared for this outcome, I call my bank. We will call it Larvest. I get a hold of a representative and explain my suspicions of the check possibly being fraudulent. I explain that I want the funds from the check withheld from my account until the check has 100% cleared. The rep confidently assures me that the money will not show up in my account until the check has fully cleared. Over the course of the next 10 days, I'm being pestered by the dad to send him back the money. I tell him that I'm waiting for the check to clear and the money to be made available to provide the refund. Finally, after about 2 weeks from when I deposited the check, I see the money in my account. I figure this means that this wasn't a scam and there really is a poor kid that has COVID, and I sent the money back to the dad. 2 days later, there's an additional $1,600 charge on my account. I call Larvest and they state, "Oh yeah, that check didn't clear. The account it was from didn't have sufficient funds." No matter what I said, I was told that there was nothing they could do, since the check was marked NSF. So I went and reported the charge as fraudulent, and gave the investigator everything I knew, including the information that I was told by the bank. The money wouldn't be deposited without the check clearing. Well, the call recording couldn't be found, and I was left on the hook for the full $1,600. I obviously no longer bank there, and will advise anyone that will listen not to bank with Larvest. Now that's really unfortunate, especially because it seems like OP did everything right. Except maybe he could have done a cursory call to the bank just to say, "Hey, was that check real?" But even then, that shouldn't have been necessary. I've heard lots of stories with these kinds of problems, but personally I've at least had good experiences with the bank, and they've normally sorted me out quite quickly, even if the waiting queue is very long. Alright everyone, that's it for today from Web Relates. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in another video soon. Cheers.